Welcome back. And we're moving into our first segment for this morning as we're joined by representatives of the BelizeHumaine Society. And of course, some of their little members, can we call them that right now? And we have with us Debra, who is the chairperson of the board. And we have Diomne Habet, who is the chair of the Animal Welfare Committee. Good morning and welcome. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And we have some little friends here as well that hopefully will get some attention and get some homes as well. So welcome back. And one of the things I know that is a part of the conversation, and it's a great introduction to why we have the puppies on set, is your rescue missions as a part of the Humane Society. Tell us about that.
Well, Diomne is the one who's really responsible for that, but that's really, so she'll tell you more about it in a bit. You know, the rescue work and the rehoming of animals whenever we can is really the biggest part of our work, certainly the most time consuming and I think the most stressful in terms of always being sort of panicked in a way because we don't have a shelter, so we need to find foster homes. We need adopters for the animals, and the better known we get, we're kind of a victim of our own success. You know, we get more and more. Diomne, maybe you want to just tell us about your week in terms of
so basically what happens, I'll use Ruby as an example. We get a report through our Facebook page, or they report it at Animal Medical Center, and I receive a phone call and they tell me where the dogs are located and how many dogs are there. And what I usually do is I scope out the area first. I let the dogs get familiar with me as an individual. And then I have to rally the troops. I have to get some volunteers. So yesterday we rescued 2 female adults and 12 puppies.
12 puppies.
12 puppies.
Wow.
It is a lot. So we had to use food to coax them into the crates, and for some reason most of our animals are afraid of men. So my volunteers who are male could not assist me. I had to crate them myself. But that's basically how it works. We work as a volunteer on a volunteer basis, so we might not immediately be able to answer a call or pick up a dog, but we do the best we can with the resources that we have.
Yeah. Now, what do you do when you arrive in an area and, I mean, they at some point had an owner? Do you attempt to locate them? Do you inform them that you will be, I'm sorry, okay. Do you attempt to speak with them, or do they have to be proven to be abandoned?
No, they don't have to be proven to be abandoned. As long as a dog is roaming, they're considered owned. They're owned by the state. Okay. So we can legally pick them up. And in some cases, we don't even know if they have an owner or if their owner would want them back if they've deteriorated to such a condition. Would we want to return them to an owner? So usually when we find an animal, if they aren't claimed by somebody, we take them in as BHS rescues.
Yeah. Now, Debra, I'm sure that becomes a sticky situation. How do you normally manage that?
Well, when we get rescues, you know, certainly in situations where the dog appears very healthy and they look like they would have an owner, we do put them on our Facebook page and say, you know, if you know this dog, or if it's your dog, please help us find the owner. I don't think we've ever had an owner come forward, because quite often that happens when the dog is injured. We had a case just about 3-4 weeks ago where there was a beautiful dog, very, very healthy, had been hit, was in a drain on Faber's Road. The welfare committee went out and got the dog out of the drain. At first we thought the dog was going to be able to be rehabilitated because it just looked like he had a fairly clean break on his front arm. So we put the word out through our Facebook page, got no response. But unfortunately, eventually that dog did have to be put down because it had because of the impact. We think it was hit by a car. Because of the impact, it had developed like a neurological problem. So it had basically had no communication between its brain and the whole back part of its body. And so it's really, I mean, it's also kind of a warning for people who let their animals run loose. It's just, you know, quite apart from whatever nuisance value it might have. it's not safe for the animal. And if you have an animal that you care about, don't let it roam.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that. Well, I know that in Belize City, especially, we have a lot of stray dogs walking around, and it's heartbreaking because you know that these pets, these dogs, these animals, these cats even, once belonged to somebody. What would you say would be immediate tips that to pet owners, to help them with either keeping their animals, or if they don't want them or they can't take care of them anymore, how to pass them along?
Well, we do assist people in finding a new home if they're in a situation where they really can't keep their animal. So we will, we don't often take them and just put them immediately into foster care because we don't have foster homes, enough of them for the rescue animals. But we will put them up on our Facebook page, and if the person can just keep them long enough for us to find someone who's interested in adopting, we can assist them with that. So there's certainly no reason, at least from the outset, to just leave an animal. And you might be surprised how many calls that we get from people who've moved, and then someone will call us and say, these people moved 3 weeks ago and they've left their dog or dogs, and the neighborhood is feeding them so they don't starve, but they're just there, tied up or whatever. So, certainly one of the big, we have our leaflet, the do's and don'ts of being a responsible pet owner. And certainly one of them is, don't abandon your animal and don't leave it behind if you move. It's your responsibility as a pet owner to find, if you can't keep the animal, it's your responsibility to find it another home. Not only the responsibility of the animal, but the responsibility to the community. Because as you said, those are the animals that become the nuisance animals through no fault of their own, through the fault of the person who's walked away.
Now, one of the messages I know that can be reinforced is that there are laws that govern how one should care for their pets, what your responsibilities are if you own a pet. Can we talk about those?
Sure. There's two acts in Belize that cover animals. One is the Dogs Act, specifically about the situation of dogs, and the other is the Cruelty to Animals Act, which covers any kind of animals, including dogs and cats. So between those, it really does give a pretty comprehensive list of things that you're not supposed to do. So for example, you are required as a pet owner to give your dog proper food, or your animal proper food and water. And in fact, if you don't, someone can go on your property and give that animal food and water and not be charged with trespassing. And then you're responsible to repay that person if that person has done that. You aren't allowed to have your dog on the street unless you are with it and the dog is either leashed or carried. Right? So that's another piece of the law that most people are not familiar with. You are not allowed to mistreat your dog. You're not allowed to abuse your dog. We get reports.
You can't hit it.
You can't hit it. You can't, your dog or your cat or your horse or any animal. We get calls, we get reports all the time from people, sometimes from our volunteers or sometimes from just supporters in the community who have tried to intervene in a situation where someone has been beating or abusing their animal, and the response is, this is my dog, I can do what I want. And well, no, you can't, because I think both morally but also legally there are laws on the books that say you can't do that. Now we know those laws haven't been effectively enforced in recent years. Apparently in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the laws in Belize around animals were well enforced, and somehow something happened and it kind of fell apart, probably with the growth of the city in particular, and the growth of the district towns. But certainly one of the things that we're sort of trying to move on is to get these laws properly enforced. Make people aware that they do have those responsibilities, and then also make sure that those laws are enforced. At this point, often, we will go to talk to someone either on our own or sometimes with Inspector Hamilton, who's on our board and who's the head of the police canine unit. He'll also kind of go with us sometimes and talk to people, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes people will respond to those situations. But people also need to know that eventually, if they don't respond, they can be charged.
Well, I think what we can clearly identify is, it's not a problem until the dog gets itself into a problem. If it starts to go after garbage and perhaps makes a mess, then everybody says, oh, that dog, but never the owner who's left it out. Or if there is a dog that happens to bite a person, then it becomes an even bigger issue.
That's right.
So the responsibility starts with the dog owner to keep them safe within it's a fenced yard. They are required to keep them in a fenced area, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think the underlying issue is that for some reason or the other, we don't see the responsibility of owning a pet to be that big of a deal. You know, if I tie my dog all day, if I forget to feed it or give it water, if I hit it because it just doesn't do what I want it to do, or if I leave it to roam, that, you know, there are bigger things taking place in society that people should care about. But in most developed societies, these laws are there and enforced because it says a lot about the community that you're in.
Yes.
Can we talk about that?
Well, it does say a lot about the community, and there's been lots of, you know, we haven't done research in this area in Belize, but there's been lots of research done other places that shows that, you know, how you treat animals is connected to other things that happen in the community.
Yeah.
That children who learn to be abusive and violent towards animals learn to be abusive and violent to people as they grow up. So it's not that, you know, we have all the animals over here and all the people over here. We're all part of the same community.
Yeah.
There's also all kinds of things with respect to health risks that happen when when the community doesn't ensure that its animals are taken care of, so that animals get diseases that can be passed on to humans. Animals become aggressive. One of the things we say is, you know, when you hit your animal, it doesn't teach it anything except fear, and fear leads to aggression.
Yes.
So if you don't want animals in your neighborhood biting people, then the first thing you do is you don't beat your animal. Because they're much more likely to be aggressive and to bite people because they're biting usually out of fear.
Yes.
So, you know, to see that, you know, oh, there's this, you know, all these animals, but they're really not important. And then there's how people live their lives are two completely separate things, really doesn't turn out that way when you look at the effects of what happens when people don't care for their animals properly.
Can we also talk about the importance of the health of the pet? Because I know in a lot of families, for them, getting their animal spayed is not important at all. So it's hard enough to take care of one pet so far in its own by itself. When they have puppies or when they have kittens and they have 12 of them, like Ruby did, and then they can't take care of those, and then those puppies end up on the streets. That also leads to nuisance, and that also leads to these pets being abandoned and you know, to their demise. So talk about the importance of spaying and also the health of the pet as when you have them.
Do you want to do that one?
Sure. So all our rescues are spayed and neutered. We usually encourage spaying and neutering to happen before, for a female before her first heat, so that's around 6 to 8 months. The importance of it is that if you spay or neuter your dog and she can't have multiple litters, her lifespan will be longer. And it could also prevent your dog from developing a type of cancer. There's actually TVT, which is a venereal disease, which spreads across very quickly. Like once 2 dogs come in contact and your dog gets TVT, it's a very aggressive disease and the treatment is expensive. So once a dog gets TVT, they might be abandoned. The owner might see that the dog has these tumors forming and they might abandon their dog. And once this dog is roaming and gets in contact with it, basically just keeps going on and on. So the importance of spaying and neutering is not just to stabilize the homeless population, but it's for your own dog's health. Your own dog will have less urges to escape the yard. Your female won't have to go through heat twice a year until she dies, because that's how often females go into heat. It might help males with aggression and marking. You know, when they mark their property, it might lower those urges, and it can also prevent them from developing cancer. So it's some people consider it inhumane, but it's honestly the best thing you can do for your pet.
Yeah, yeah. And it helps to control the population that we see on the street. Ruby is a good example of a dog that has been rescued, but not all will be rescued.
It was just the tip of the iceberg
Yeah.
that we hear about and that we could even deal with.
Yeah.
You know, I was saying earlier, in some ways we're victims of our own success because the better known we get, the more calls we get, the more pressure it is, the more volunteers we need, the more fosters we
Yeah.
need, the more adoptive homes we need. So, you know, we really need to go at it both ways. We need to rescue those animals that need to be rescued and that the community needs to have out of that situation. But we also need to find ways to stop, you know, the more and more animals breeding in situations where they really don't have to.
Yeah.
So what are the numbers of fosters that you have and persons who are interested in adopting rescue dogs?
You would probably have a better.
Currently, we have about 13 active fosters,
Wow.
and some of them are fostering multiple. Sometimes
I would imagine,
when we
yeah.
get litters, people are willing to take on 2 or 3 from a litter. When it comes to adopters, it really it depends on the dog and it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have to be careful when we get animals who look like they're mixed with purebreds because we'll get a flood of messages. And we have to screen these people because some of these people might want to breed them and that would basically be working against us.
Yeah.
So, but when we get patlikas who are clearly mixed breed, it might be a little, and especially if they're adults, it might be a little harder to get them adopted.
Yeah.
So when it comes to adoption, we just try to promote them on our Facebook page. And if you want to help, honestly, if you share a post, your cousin, sister, brother, uncle will see this dog and say, I want to adopt this dog.
Yeah.
So something as simple as clicking share can help a dog get a home.
Yeah. Now, I guess people would be fearful of taking in a dog that they don't know what background it has. In other words, if you pick up a dog from the street and I want to rescue it, how do I know it's safe for my family?
Well, all of our dogs are checked out by the vet.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we do when we get an animal or animals in many cases is we take them to Animal Medical Center and they get an assessment. And then sometimes we have to make a decision about whether or not this animal can be saved because some animals are either so sick or so injured that the treatment would be long, costly. It would be very difficult to find a foster who's willing to invest the time. So in those situations, sometimes we have to humanely euthanize the animals because there just really isn't any choice. But I would say the majority of animals are either fine or they have something that's easily curable. We had a little guy named Caesar, a little puppy, a couple of weeks ago that had sarcoptic mange, which is a kind of mange that is contagious to both animals and people. But it's actually very curable as well. So he just needed to be in isolation for, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
And once he got through his treatments, and you know, he's got a great foster on Key Cocker. He's roaming the beach and having a great time, and she has found someone who is probably going to want to adopt him.
Fantastic.
So, you know, there's lots of situations where with a little bit of care, these animals can come back to health, but any animal that comes through us
We'll get a
always
proper
has
medical screen.
always has a clean bill of
And
health.
what about their temperament?
Yeah.
Sorry?
What about their temperament?
Well, the vets can also pretty well assess their temperament as well. You know, look for the signs of aggression and to see if they're going to be an animal that's suitable for a home.
Okay.
And certainly, if there was any sort of sign of aggressive behavior, we would certainly think more than twice before
Putting him
recommending the dog for adoption. Sometimes it's a situation where a dog is fine, but maybe they're just not. They shouldn't be in a home with other dogs.
Yeah.
For example, and so then we look for an adopter who is just going to have a one-dog family. But you know, the vets also do help with those more, I guess, psychological animal issues as opposed to the physical health as well.
Yeah. So how do you fund this work that you do? That was my question. Once upon a time, there was a dog shelter that was donated to the Humane Society through the City Council.
It was on land from
It
City
was land,
Council.
yeah.
I think they raised
Yeah.
the money to build it. Yeah, there was a shelter for, I think, about maybe 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure exactly how long. It closed about, I would say, about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the problems was that the shelter, the resources were gathered to actually build the shelter, but it's also a very costly thing to run a shelter.
Yeah.
Right.
You need a staff. They had only one staff person. And I just think that there were problems in the operation that kind of led to other kinds of problems.
Yeah.
And eventually the shelter just shut down.
Yeah.
That was also during a period when there wasn't an actual board.
Yeah.
It was just the original chairperson had left the country, and there was a few volunteers kind of carrying on.
Is there an aim to be able to establish another shelter?
We're looking at that.
Yeah.
That we've had some very good discussions with the mayor, and we've talked to the city about sort of establishing a more formal partnership.
Yeah.
And part of that would be, the city has agreed to identify some city land where we could put a facility.
Yeah.
We're being a little bit cautious because we don't want to be in the same situation where that was before, because people are always excited to put money into getting the building or getting the facility, but the maintenance and the sort of sustainability of the facility also has to be a piece of the puzzle. We've also just last week had someone contact us who's a Belizean now living in Canada, who has said that she's willing to help with some fundraising on that end.
Oh.
So there are some possibilities out
Yeah.
there, but I think it'll be very much a step-by-step
Okay.
kind of basis, and it's going to be a few years down the road before we can even really think about something like a shelter, I think.
So for now, it is simply volunteers that go out and rescue, volunteers that foster, and people who are willing to adopt them, then take them on.
Right.
So that's all volunteer time and
Money.
resources. Yeah.
We raise money. Well, one of our ways of raising money is through the tourism village. We have a booth there.
Yeah.
Another way, people might remember a few weeks ago we were on talking about our dog show, which was supposed to be on September 30th, but because of the rain, we had to postpone it. So it's coming up again this weekend on Saturday. So I hope everyone will come out. It's going to be rain or shine. We're going to go through. We've got a lot of tents, so if there's a fly-through shower, you can get a little shelter. And it's at Memorial Park. It's our dog show and party in the park. It's going to be really fun. The dog show's got 8 categories. Got some great prizes, trophies, and bundles of dog food and treats from Reimers, and gift certificates from Brothers Habet, and all kinds of other stuff. So it's only $5 to register your dog, and you can get, if you're the winner, you're going to get a really great prize.
Yeah.
And there's going to be games for kids and face painting. We'll have, our major sponsor is Tito's Handmade Vodka, so we're going to have a dog tail bar with shiatsu sunrise and the potlicka and some other things.
I'm sure the potlicka will be the strongest one there.
I think so. It should be, right, Ruby? And so it's going to be really fun. There'll be a demonstration by the Canine Unit.
Yeah. And this is a fundraiser. How does one donate funds by? Because it's free to enter.
It's free to enter. Of course, we're going to be selling food and so on. And we're also going to sort of pass the hat as well, since there's no entry fee, because it's an event in the park and we want everyone to be able to come. But we will be sort of passing around for donations, and we hope people will, give what they can afford.
Yeah. So that takes place this Saturday at the Memorial Park.
Right.
So people can come out, see the dogs. The dog show features quite a bit of tricks.
There's obedience, there's tricks, there's best potlicka, best dressed, there's a category for every dog. So you can go on our Facebook page, and all the categories and the dog show rules are there if you're interested.
And it starts at 2 in the afternoon?
It starts at 2. If you want to enter your dog, we're asking you to be there by 1.
Okay.
So we can do the registration and so get the dogs organized for the different parts of the show. And then the show itself will start at 2, and the event will go till 6. The show itself should be about 2 hours, and then we'll potty in the park.
And Diomne, tell us about the rescue mission and that you do and how people can help.
What we need most are fosters. We have 12 puppies here, and so we need to find somebody willing to take on 12 puppies. In some cases, if we have to separate them and bottle feed them, we'll do that. But since we rely so heavily on fosters, if we get a case and we don't have a foster willing to take care of this dog, we can't pick up this dog because we'll have nowhere to put her. And if we rescue her and we treat her and put her back on the street, she might just get whatever she had all over again.
Yeah.
So what we really need, we need our volunteers on the ground. We need volunteers who are willing to do the actual rescues. We need fosters who are willing to hold the animals.
How long do they hold them for, and what criteria do you have to meet?
They have to meet the same criteria as an adopter. So they either have to have a fully fenced yard if it's an adult dog, and if not, alternatively, keep the dog indoors. If it's pups, they have to be willing to, they have to have a schedule that allows them to feed the pup throughout the day. Basically, these pups need to eat 3-4 times a day. Especially when they're this young, they need to be bottle fed. So our fosters are always animal lovers, and the stickiness of this situation is that they are often foster fails, and once they
because they end up adopting.
And once they're a foster fail, they can't foster again.
Oh.
Especially when they're foster fail like 2, 3, 4 times, which has also happened.
So we definitely need more people who are willing to take on these animals, more people who are willing to open their homes to dogs. The breed of the dog doesn't matter. You will be repaid unconditionally until this dog hopefully passes away from old age and not a disease or something, or not suffering on the streets.
How long would you typically leave a dog in foster? Until it takes the time to adopt?
Sometimes it is up to that. Sometimes it might take a few weeks. Sometimes if they're pups, until they're old enough to be eating on their own.
Yeah.
If they're kittens, until they're old enough to be eating on their own. Usually pups have to be with their mothers for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So fosters, it depends on them and how much they're willing to put in. BelizeHumaine Society, we help with covering expenses for food, and all our animals are dewormed by us. So the foster, really, if a foster is willing to, we've had some incredible fosters who took on a pregnant dog and saw her out throughout her pregnancy, and fostered all her dogs until, all her pups, all 12 of them, until they're adopted. And that's their personal decision.
Yeah. We
have fosters who say, I can foster this dog for a week, and then we use this week to try to find another foster. So it's really up to them, and we can't impose our animals on them and tell them you have to hold this dog. It's up to them to it's up to their discretion how long they want to foster an animal, and how.
And it's a good thing if they're honest with you as well.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So what else can you tell us about helping the Humane Society on your mission?
Well, I was just thinking as Diomne was talking about this litter, and we were talking about fundraising a while ago. Certainly one of the ways we raise money is through appeals through our Facebook page or whatever. And given how many animals we've just gotten in this week, I know I'm the one, along with our treasurer, who watches the budget, and I kind of know that our budget's going to be a little bit broken this month. So if anyone out there is interested in making a donation to these little guys to get them healthy, and
look at them, they're so cute
and on their way
so calm. How old are they?
They're about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
You can certainly contact us through our Facebook page.
You say hello, you're a superstar
and
today.
we'll send you how you can send a donation, because we will need, we're going to be needing some funds to get these guys ready to go to their new homes.
And does the society have merchandise that?
We do. We have T-shirts. We sometimes have dog bandanas and stickers, bumper stickers, and right now we're looking into getting some baseball hats. So yes, we do. And so for example, at the event on the weekend, we'll be out there with we have our table, and you can pick up a T-shirt. Or some of the other things that we have.
And Ruby will also need to find a home?
Ruby will definitely need to find a home.
Her baby.
Ruby needs a home. All 12 pups need a home, and Ruby was rescued with Pearl. In one of our photos, Ruby is pictured with Pearl. Pearl can't be nursing her pups right now because she has infected breasts. This is probably due to malnourishment and lack of hygiene since they are street dogs. So we need a temporary foster who's willing to hold Pearl for 9 days at least, so that her infection can clear up, and then we can return her to her pups. So these 12 pups don't all belong to Ruby. Some of them belong to Pearl. But as long as Pearl is infected, she can't nurse.
So Ruby's feeding all of them?
Between Puppy Milk and Puppy Chow and Ruby.
Oh, there's Pearl.
That's Pearl.
Yeah.
So Pearl needs a foster for at least 9 days for her infection to clear up, so she can return to her pups and Ruby, and they can all and all these 12 pups will need
and the 2 moms will need
as well as the
homes.
adult dogs. So if you want to add to your family, come to us and we can help you find the perfect fit for your family.
Now, we also know that at this time, or in a couple months, Christmas is nearing, and one of the most popular presents that the children tend to get are puppies. What's some of the advice you want to give people in terms of making a decision to become a responsible pet owner?
Well, first of all, we kind of caution people about using puppies as gifts at Christmas. Not that it's always a bad idea, but it's quite often one of those things that it seems like a good idea at the time, and then people realize after the cuteness of the puppy is over that maybe they don't really want this dog after all. And so we just ask people to, first of all, really think through if you're willing to take on the responsibility of an animal, and that, will the animal still be as much a part of your family when it's no longer a cute little puppy. Still cute maybe, but an adult dog.
It's like kids, they're going to grow up.
Exactly.
And we all want them to stay puppies forever, but fortunately they can't do that.
That's right. So we just ask people to be really careful before making the decision. It's not a bicycle, or it's not a game, that you can cast aside and it won't matter. It will matter a lot, both to the animal and potentially to the community for all the reasons we've already talked about. So, just think about it.
And parents have to realize that they're the ones taking care of the pet. It's not going to be the kids.
Very often that's true.
So they have to make that decision within themselves.
Although it's a very good thing to teach kids responsibility, to have them be responsible for a pet. But sometimes Christmas might not be the best time to do that.
They'll be distracted by many other toys. But we didn't even talk about that, because I think one of the things that people don't realize is that raising responsibly a dog is actually very good for children, or being a part of it. It teaches them to nurture, it teaches them empathy, and responsibility as well.
Absolutely.
If they're doing it right.
Yes, exactly.
So let's go over that list as a part of our close about what pet owners should and should not be doing, right?
Okay, well, speaking of puppies and kittens, it's really important that people understand that these are babies.
Yes, they are.
They're not going to come into your house and they're not going to know what to do, and they're not going to know all the rules, and maybe they'll pee on your floor. Or,
Or on you.
And then, of course, all of us have had that happen. It's just, you have to have a little patience. And you have to be willing to teach the animals the rules, not by hitting them, because hitting them teaches them absolutely nothing, except to be afraid of you. But you have to learn how to, teach them step by step, that they need to go outside, or they need to go to a litter box, or all of those things. So a little bit of patience goes a long way. Vaccinations, really, really important. A lot of the diseases animals get are just very contagious. They can kill your animal very quickly. Things like TVT are bad in terms of getting your dog spayed and neutered. Animals need a lot of water. Make sure they have lots of fresh water, especially in Belize when it's so hot. They dehydrate very, very quickly. Cats in particular can get all kinds of urinary tract infections because they don't drink. Cats tend not to drink as much water anyway. So if they don't have access to water, that's a big problem. Feeding your pet healthy food, and also making sure you're not feeding it things that are dangerous to it. So a lot of people don't know, for example, that dogs and cats cannot eat things like onions and garlic So if you're feeding your cat scrap or your animal scraps, and you're feeding it something that has a lot of onions and garlic
Lots
in
of
it,
spices, yeah.
you can actually make your dog sick or possibly even die if they eat enough of it.
And chocolate.
Chocolate is especially if for a little puppy, but for any dog is toxic. It'll kill a small dog or a puppy if you allow if you have just chocolate lying around the house and the animal gets into it. Spay and neuter, absolutely important.
And you have clinics once a year, twice a year?
We're trying to get to twice a year. Eventually, we would like to do it quarterly, but we're aiming. This year we had 2.
Yeah.
We just had one in September at the YMCA where we 124 animals in
completely
2 days.
free.
And it was completely free. We asked people to give a donation, again, what they can afford, but it's, we don't want finances to be a barrier to people who might otherwise not be able to spay and neuter their pets. So yes, well, I'm sure we'll be having one sometime in the new year. We just haven't sort of established when yet. We really want to emphasize to people that animals need to socialize. A lot of people, you see these poor dogs, chained out in a yard. No one pays any attention to them. Nobody, when they were a cute puppy, the kids went out to play with it. Now nobody plays. No, dogs and cats too need interaction. Right? They need socializing. They crave attention. They crave your attention.
Especially dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs my cat lets me know if I'm not giving her enough attention. You should see my ankles. But yes, I mean, so dogs and cats are living things. They need that kind of attention. Teach your children to be kind to animals. Lead by example. Your kids will be better off. They'll learn empathy. They'll learn kindness to people. They'll learn they'll learn responsibility, and they'll learn not to be violent. Right? All of those things. And I think the most important is to understand that having a pet means responsibility to the pet and to the community. Right? I mean, we're all trying to work together so that not only are the animals treated the way they should be treated, but our communities are healthier places to be and happier places to be. And every one of us who has an animal has a part of that responsibility.
Yeah.
How about the don'ts? You want to do the don'ts?
We definitely discourage chaining up your dog in any way. If you chain your dog and it doesn't have any shelter from the rain or the sun, your dog's health will quickly deteriorate. And they will, when we can tell when a dog's been chained for most of their lives, because they will have marks on their neck. We very recently had the sweetest dog. This dog was playful, energetic, about a year old, but his collar was on so tight that his flesh was visible. Like he smelled like rotting skin, and because it was so far along, we had to euthanize this dog. So do not leave your dog chained up for weeks, months, years. Do not do that. If you can't handle a dog, don't get a dog. A dog is a 10-year commitment at least. We also don't encourage hitting your pets to teach them. If your dog pees on the carpet and you hit that dog, she won't know why you're hitting her, and she'll associate you with fear. We also don't want dogs to roam. If you have a dog and your dog roams, it's a danger to your dog and the community, because if your dog is sweet and submissive, someone can steal her. If your dog is aggressive, she might hurt a child. If your dog is not vaccinated, she could easily pick up these very aggressive diseases like distemper, TBT, and these diseases are deadly and costly to treat. So if you let your dogs roam, you are putting your dog at risk, and you're also putting your community at risk.
All right. So anything else you'd like to share with people who are watching, who perhaps are now thinking that they need to be kinder to their dogs?
Well, I think just, certainly you can follow our Facebook page. We not only do we put information up about our animals, we often put information up about how to be a better pet owner. Right? So, and there's, in addition to our page, there's lots of information on the internet. If you want to learn how to be a better and more responsible pet owner. And we really, really encourage people to do that, because You know, there's many people in Belize who love their animals and treat them great. But unfortunately, we've also developed, in some of us, a kind of attitude, as I think you were saying before, it's just an animal, it doesn't matter how I treat it. And I mean, look at that face. Look at that face. How can you say it doesn't matter when you look at these animals? They are living beings, and I'll tell you, they're a lot happier today now that they're with us than they were yesterday.
I mean, can you imagine a puppy this small on the street trying to stay warm with all the rain that they've been having?
Yeah.
So we hope that people have been paying attention and will take into consideration the responsibilities they have as a pet owner, and also for those who seen these cute little puppies are now interested in perhaps giving them a home. As you pointed out, you will need some donations to be able to care for them until they're ready to leave their mom. And the Pawty in the park is the perfect opportunity to donate those funds this Saturday at Memorial Park.
Right. 2 o'clock, please.
2
Everybody
p.m.
come out. It's going to be a very fun day.
Are you going to be there?
And we'll probably have the puppies there. We're going to have an adoption corner so you can come and meet some of the animals that you might want to have as part of your family.
Yeah, and thank you to Ruby. Ruby's enjoying the rest and the break from the puppies as well, as any new mom would.
Especially when you've got two loads of pups to
So
take care
thank you
of.
so much for stopping in. Remember, you can find the Belize Humane Society on Facebook. They're very active, especially if they want to discuss a rescue. They can contact you there as well. Thank you, Debra. Thank you, Diomne. We appreciate you for coming in and bringing these special guests. And we hope that people have been able to hear what we've been speaking about this morning and take it into consideration.
Great, thanks for having us.
We're gonna go ahead now and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to Hand in Hand Ministries about their 15th anniversary, so stay tuned.